Hi, and it's time for Top Dice. Hi, and welcome to Top Dice, I made, and I've got Ezra with me today, and we're going to talk a bit about the different editions of Dungeons and Dragons and how they connect to each other. So, hi, Ezra, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Brilliant. Yeah, not so bad. Cheers. Very interested in the conversation we're going to have today about D&D. So, bit of background from yourself. When did you start with D&D originally?
I started playing D&D when I was 13, and I was introduced, despite the fact that 3.5 was out when I started playing D&D, I was introduced to First Ed AD&D.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a grognard. That is still my favourite D&D. That's what I think is pure D&D. And I've played second and 3.5 and 4 and 5,
Yeah.
but I'm
So
still very attached to first.
I think yeah, it's one of those. I started with OD&D, the original Dungeons and Dragons in the little box, many years ago. And looking back, the actual writing of it was rubbish. I'll be quite blunt. But at the time, it was just absolutely mind blowing. And then we ended up with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, first edition, which is probably the game I've played the most ever. Um, I've spent must hundreds and hundreds of hours playing that game. Then there's
Yeah,
the second edition. Yeah, second edition came out, the which was quite an interesting and bold move. You had the skill system in that, and then you move
second
through.
edition. The only thing second edition did right was the Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah, that was that again was an interesting take on it. There were it began to get a little bit bloated with the second edition kit books that came out, like the Book of Elves, the Book of Fighters. Yeah, it really did sort of begin to grate a bit. Then we moved on to post post Gygax era with third edition, fourth, and of course what we've got now, fifth. So differences. What do you think is the major difference between the original editions and fifth?
My major difference is that one, first edition, you can roll a character in 3 minutes. That's what I think is the beauty of D&D. You roll a character in 3 minutes, you're ready to go, and you play.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of D&D. And fifth is a great game, but it doesn't feel like D&D to me because you've not got that. You rolled up your character, you can play instantly, and you just go with it. Sort of like the simplicity of D&D, the way it's an introductory game, that isn't there in this.
No.
It's
Right. Yeah.
much more complex than a lot of other games.
Yeah. That's it. They've really expanded it out. You can't create a D&D character realistically in 5, 10, or even 15 minutes anymore.
No, it takes forever.
Too many choices. And I think that's probably one of the issues. Its choice is great, but at its core, I think it actually detracts from what it's about.
You can make those choices sort of in your role playing style,
Exactly.
but for a beginner, I think first ed D&D is perfect
Yeah.
because you roll 3 dice 6 times and then you're done, and then you're thrown into the game,
Yep.
and the game just works.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the
you
game
th
isn't overly complicated, and combat isn't overly complicated. There's no
Nope.
flanking. There's no extra points for backstabbing apart from being a rogue, and there's no complexity to it.
Yeah.
Whereas I find with fifth, there's like with combat, especially, you have to have a strategy. And in
Yeah.
first ed, our strategy was always send in the half orc.
Yeah.
Like,
With you completely on this. It's the way I find it is with the AD&D. You're right. You rolled your stats. Your stats dictated what character classes you could play. If you were very lucky with a couple of rolls, you could play a paladin. It may be that you could only play a rogue. It may
If you
be
were
that,
extremely lucky, you could play a monk, but that basically never happened.
yeah, it was very, very rare. There wasn't the complexity of looking at skills or anything like that. You had the character, and it forced you to actually, in my mind, role play the character rather than have it stat driven and point
Yeah.
driven. So that was a big thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you might end up with a wizard with 2 hit points or something like that. The
Oh
thing
yeah,
was, you
that's
just
really common.
you were just very, very careful. You could usually get through that first level reasonably quickly, and then
Most GMs would be gentle with you, but
yeah, well, that was it. It was all about creating the story, and you could say that about fifth edition. But there was a certain raw edge, I think, to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that is certainly missing from fifth. Now, I enjoy fifth, but I think it's has its place, and it is Dungeons and Dragons, but it's certainly not Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. But it's nowhere. It's beyond advanced, as far as I'm concerned. It should be called Complex Dungeons and Dragons.
and I I struggle recommending it to people because I don't think it's where a beginner should start. Everyone says if you're beginning, start with Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm like, probably not with fifth edition though, because there are many less complex game systems out there that will teach you how to role play and teach you how to play a tabletop RPG without the complexity that you get in fifth.
Yeah, yeah.
And
The starter sets I think work really well on this because you don't have all the what I term faff and messing around.
yes,
The
and actually Pathfinder 2.0 really does it well. Does like a basic D&D, like a 3.5-ish D&D, but getting towards a basic D&D type setup, and their boxes come with a dungeon
yeah,
and a map that you can draw on and little figures of all the enemies that are in there, and
that
that's
sums
like
it up.
20 quid. It's a really good box.
That's it. Well, if I remember rightly, I think it's about 64 pages, the old basic Dungeons and Dragons, going back in the day, from memory. I haven't got it to hand, unfortunately, at the moment, so I can't actually sort of confirm that. But it was quite a slim book. There was
Mm.
art in it. There were charts, but it got everything across in a very simplistic way, and you knew how to play. My favorite rule set overall, I've got to sort of say, is the Rules Cyclopedia version, which is the basic expert companion bunch all in the one hardback volume that was. And I think that was just it was just so simple,
Mm.
just
Yeah, and
absolutely
like you only
simple.
need the player's handbook between all six of you. And it was helpful to have two because the cleric needed one for the spells and the wizard needed one for the spells. But that was it.
Yeah,
You needed it to roll up and you needed it for spells, and then you never needed to look at it again.
yeah, that's it, basically. It was, I think, a much simpler time. And like I said, fifth edition, I think it's quite a vanilla set. It's not tied. I know it's supposed to be tied to Forgotten Realms, etc. But at its core, it's a very sort of vanilla system, and it is adaptable. But you're right, it isn't especially simple, and it must be quite confusing for quite a few of those who are coming to it. It was quite
Yeah,
an easy step for me because I knew the basics from years ago anyway, so it was quite an easy learn for me. But I do know people who've struggled with it and they've tried hard. They play it, but they don't actually understand it.
yeah. Like I struggled with combat when I first played Fifth because I've never played a game with combat quite so complex.
Yeah,
Even in like I'm trying to think, all of the games I've played are role play heavy, and there's
yeah,
not. Although D&D is combat heavy, it's usually everybody hit the monster.
yeah,
Never. been right, well, you go in that position, you go in that position, and and then we'll get a bonus, and you do that. It's never been strategic.
No, it's kind of pulled that, I suppose, from elements of third and fourth edition as well, which obviously was very much a more fourth was at the very visual sort of miniatures on the table on a big map sort of thing. And you had to be looking at where your miniature was placed. Could it be flanked? Could it be
Yeah,
charged? Could you charge? You had
I
to count the squares? And that's one reason why fourth edition for me didn't really catch on because it was a miniatures game. That's my opinion anyway.
to be fair, I read that clerics could have pointed weapons in fourth edition, and I abandoned all sense of ever playing it because I was like, right,
Yeah.
well, that's out, that's terrible.
Yeah. That was
I
one of
was like, it's broken one of
core
my
things.
cardinal rules.
Yeah. It was I think it's one of the core things that clerics used blunt weapons, maces, and similar, and I think that was sort of a really good move. They could tank it up to a point, and they could absorb the damage, but they just had to be very careful. They obviously weren't as hardy as a fighter, and they couldn't deal out the damage as much. Um, they were kind of, I suppose, second blast to a fighter in many ways, whilst the old thief used to just stabby stabby where they could.
Yeah. Thief is more of like a DPS.
Yeah, and you'd got your mage stood at the back, sort of launching first dish.
Same
Hopefully, if they'd
well
actually got it, they'd sort of launch the bolt, and that would be it. That would be their one shot gone. Magic missile, one use. Then get your knife out or dagger out and just hope for the best, and nobody comes near you.
in the very first game of D&D I played, pretty much everyone was chaotic good except um my best friend who was also playing for the first time, who decided to be chaotic neutral. And she was getting XP no matter who her arrows hit, whether it was our team or the enemy, because she
Yeah,
was always back. When we found out that she was chaotic neutral, we dumped her in lava, I think.
yeah. It's I tend I actually dropped that aspect actually of it and got rid of the alignments. I still use them from time to time, but yeah, it's I worked on the assumption that even the biggest demon's going to wake up at some stage and go, oh, do you know, it's quite a nice sunny today. I feel quite good about myself. And you'll get the Pope sort of waking up, going, "Oh, do you know what? I'm right ratty today." Uh,
I fuck everything.
so I kind of dropped it, but if you were a paladin or similar, then you were expected to sort of uphold the
Yeah, you're
ideals.
expected to act like that.
Yeah. So it's all about role playing and the act, and you used your alignment as a guide, basically. But
Yeah,
it's so much fun in my younger days with these things. I just loved it. So many campaigns that I ran went on for years, some of them, and
yeah.
like
I had
yourself,
people that went on for years. Yeah.
yeah. It was Greyhawk for me. That was my setting that I ran because
Mm.
back in the day, I presume, was it Forgotten Realms for yourself or Homebrew?
It was a homebrew, I think. We had a DM at our um local gaming club who he came from ages away, but he used to live in the area and set up the gaming club, and then he came to the gaming club repeatedly, and he kept coming to it until it got shut down because we had an argument with the community centre.
Okay,
But it was homebrew, and and we played it for ages and ages, and then we played Masks of Nyarlathotep called Cthulhu.
brilliant.
So and we played Tomb of Tomb of Horrors. So we did a lot of really classic games in that run with him.
Yeah, it would have been. I presume was it the campaigny Tomb of Horrors rather than I presume than just the straight Tomb of Horrors where you with just a single dungeon. Which way did
No,
you
we
play?
just single dungeon.
Yeah, that's deadly as that.
Yeah,
I've had so
we were
much
given
fun with that in
like
the past.
three characters each, and like just told when one dies, you just cycle in the next.
Yeah, see how long you can actually last.
Yeah, you step in, one of you's dead. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Now you've learned how the dungeon works.
that's it. It's basically like Paranoia. If you ever played that, you'll get your
Yes,
clones and
I have the game master book, so I can't play it, but I do know how it works.
yeah. Again, that's another off track a bit, but that's another game I think is absolutely fantastic. Back in the day, it
It's a
was really
beautiful
funny.
game. Yeah, I've got so
Uh,
many books.
it's
I'd love to run it, but I've
you
never had a chance.
you should you really should. If you've got to have the right players though. With all games, you've got to
I
have the
think
right
I
bunch.
think I've got people in mind who would work for that actually.
Yeah, yeah. They'd have to get it. I ended up joining one Paranoia campaign. I say campaign. I wasn't told it was a campaign originally. Do you want to come round and play Paranoia? I went, oh yeah.
Yeah,
I've run
immediately.
it.
Yes.
Not played it for years. Like, have I played one game of it? Yeah, I'll come round. And I sat and I go, well, there's your clone. I said, great. So it's a one-off, I presume. They said, oh no, we've been playing for about 6 months. I went, pardon?
Without me?
Hang on, you've been playing for 6 months. What? How many clones have you gone through? Oh, he's on his second. He's still on his first. And I'm going like, whoa.
How?
Uh, yeah, I took a look at mine and right, but what my character wasn't okay. Within 30 seconds of starting, I'd killed one of their characters. They were like they didn't like it. Uh,
Like they didn't like you.
traitor, that's it. They were very clearly a mutant commie traitor. That was it. Uh, I didn't get asked back. Anyway, oh yeah, the last of it. But anyway, D&D. Um, so best version for you is the original AD&D.
Yeah, I'm a complete grognard, and I
Yeah.
accept that.
Yeah,
But
nothing wrong with that at all. Mine is the original, like I said, the basic expert one. That's my favorite. Then AD&D. I did a top six fantasy games recently. I don't know if you got to see that. And AD&D was my first choice. I only had the second edition one to hand. Played a lot of that. So I've nominated that. Just generally AD&D has been my favorite.
yeah,
And fifth edition. I think that was fifth on the list. It has its good points. It's a good, solid fantasy system, but it's certainly not for the faint of hearted.
yeah, it's not a beginner game.
No, I wouldn't say so. If someone goes and buys the basic set, the starter set, or if they download the free rules off the internet, where you've
Mm,
just got I think you've got the cleric, the thief, they're not called thieves anymore, cleric, rogue, fighter, wizard, and
yeah,
that's it. Then that's absolutely fine. And you've only got your basic dwarf, elf, human, halfling, and again,
again,
you've got
that's a
your
lot easier.
that's all you need.
With the shapeshifter and the
Oh
bear.
God, yeah, you can go on with hundreds of different combinations now, and every week they seem to come up with a new class. And the thing
Yeah,
that really gets me is the minning and maxing of these, of people looking at, okay, well, if I play that, I can really take that to the max, and I can get so many extra hit points and get so many extra strengths. And it's like, nah, that's
yeah,
not the spirit of it.
yeah. This happened in my vampire group. When they started taking extra floors to try and get more points on their card, and I was like, that's not the purpose of the floors. The floors are there for role playing
Yeah,
purposes, and if you're not role playing them, I'm not interested.
yeah, that's it. It's again, it gets a bit much to say the least.
Yeah,
Does that, and I suppose there's a lot of the human nature coming into play here, where people will try and create the best character. And back when I was like 12, 13, I kind of did the same. I'll hold my hand up. I did it, but
yeah,
soon realised they were quite boring.
yeah. I had to monitor a couple of my teenage boys when I was DMing because
Yeah.
they'd always show up with characters with strength 1899, and I was like,
How did
"You're
you
like, it
do
just
that?
rolled that way," and I'm like, "Did it? Did it roll that way?
Did it? Did it? That was good. Yeah.
That's impressive.
This is the third time on the trot it's done that.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. You've got magic dice.
Yeah, that's it. It's like an advert I saw recently for Dice saying they rolled that many criticals. It makes the GM sick. These are the most amazing dice. No, they're not. They're actually weighted dice. They're actually just no
Dice.
fun. Why would you even
Not
advertise
fun
your dice?
at all.
But obviously they do, and they sell them. Uh, but not for me. I
No, it's
do.
not. It's not fun anymore that way.
No, I do watch people's dice rolls. If I'm with a group I'm not always sure of, who
Yeah.
I don't really know, so I do watch them and I make sure that we use a dice tower.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I use with vampire. I often don't tell them what they need, so
Good way to.
I need to see their role, and then I will tell them if they've passed or failed.
It's a
But
good
I
way to
don't
do it.
tell them what they need.
Yeah, it keeps the mystery up, and I think the suspense, which is a big thing on something like that.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't tell them if they've passed or failed. I tell them what they've noticed or
Yeah,
what they've noticed.
that's again is another good GM or DM tip that keep it to yourself. That
Like
way, they're
like
not fully sure if they
that.
passed it or not.
If they're looking for traps, don't tell them whether they've passed it or not. Tell
Yeah,
them there's no traps if they've failed.
yeah. Yeah, this is it, and it's you can fall, I think, into as a new dungeon master or games master, you can fall into a bit of a trap where you give too much information away.
Yeah,
You basically end up metagaming, and if you fall into the trap as a dungeon master or games master, then unfortunately you find the players follow suit with the way they play. They mirror you, and especially if they're newer players. So it's a good way, I think, of actually doing that.
yeah,
And it's the same with Call of Cthulhu. I don't tend to sort of tell what
exactly.
the bonuses actually
Yeah,
are. Did you roll? Did you make it? Right. Okay. You think you made it. What did you actually get? How close was it to it? Okay. Thanks. Okay. There may be pluses and minuses to that. This is what your character knows.
yeah,
And
and I really love running Call of Cthulhu. I've not done that in ages.
yeah, must be done. Stick it on your list for next time.
Yes,
uh,
make a
I've
list.
I've just gone and purchased the Master props box.
Oh, the props box. Oh,
Yeah,
I've got
uh,
I've got Master Now 30, but I've not got the props box.
it was an investment and a half,
Oh, I bet.
but I got offered it so cheap. It was about half the price it should have been, and I couldn't
Yeah,
really afford.
can you
But
resist?
I decided to really go out. It's what we'll do is next time you come on. In fact, we'll have a good route if you want through it, and I've got to be careful because I don't want my players to actually sort of see it, but I'll have to sort of make sure they don't watch that particular video. But I'm quite
Players,
happy.
do not watch this. That's what it's
Yeah,
titled.
that's it. We'll stick that actually on, but it's full of bits. So the way to I get excited bits.
Yeah,
Um, and they look really, really good. You even get some passports for the players to use.
my player who the character I played when I did masks is still alive, survived Master Now Totep.
Wow, that
Um,
takes some doing.
and I'm terrified of ever using her again because she's got like 35 Cthulhu mythos, and I'm like, I can't kill her. She's survived 20 years.
That's just let her retire gracefully.
She's retired. She's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't say she's fine.
No, she's not fine. Like she once had her head down on a table and got hit in the back of the head with a baseball bat. So she wasn't attractive to begin with.
Even less
She
so now.
yeah, she lost two appearance points for that.
At least she survived. That's the important thing.
Yeah,
That's many wouldn't. So there you go on that one. So, favorite D&D class. Let's wrap it up. Favorite D&D class.
I really love playing a cleric. I don't know what it is, but I played a cleric the first time I played, and now I always play a cleric.
Yeah. Ranger for me, for some
See,
reason.
I like playing rangers in other games, but I think because it's a lot easier to do it by yourself. With a cleric, you've got to be in a community
Yeah.
vibe, and I don't like doing that in online games.
Yeah.
But I love being a cleric in tabletop RPGs.
Yeah. I can understand that. It's a key class. The other one that I enjoyed was the Bard, but the AD&D Bard,
Yes,
and that took some doing.
that's great.
Yeah, it took some real going. I only have had one character that's actually made the grade in that.
Sorry, I've just remembered that Bard song that I found that I posted in the group.
It's oh God, there's loads of things out there once you start looking. There really, really is.
Yeah, it's just TikTok has been a great thing for the world. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's certainly opened the eyes of many. And favorite campaign was it? Well, again, was it the Tomb of Horrors?
Yeah, I think it is Tomb of Horrors actually because it really changes. It really flips the concept on its head,
Yeah,
and everything you know about D&D, you have to reevaluate. You can't go barging in. You can't just charge. You can't assume that because you've got strength 1899, you're going to survive.
yeah,
You're going to be fine. You've got to
that's it.
really
Even if you're on max hit points, you can go from
go
hero
straight
to
in.
zero very
Oh,
straight away. Yeah, that's it. It only takes you to stick your arm in one thing and you've lost it. That's the.
yeah.
I think for me, mine, and I've never played this. I've only ever run it. Was the against the Giants G1 to 3, because the
Oh,
appearance of the Dark Elves, a drow at the end. At that stage, it was the first appearance ever of these things,
hmm.
and it just scared the hell out of my players. It
Oh,
was like,
cool.
what the hell was that? We've just got these three weedy looking elves have just handed us our ass basically, and we're like, we're
Yeah,
quite powerful. We've just taken out a load of giants, and we've just been beaten up.
yeah,
We've been looking to get out. They had to fight a rearguard action against these things, dragging two of the player characters out who'd
yeah,
actually fallen victim to the sleep poison arrow.
yes.
So it came as a complete shock to them. So
Oh, that's yeah.
happy memories all around.
Mhm.
Right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up now. Any last words?
I don't think so.
All sorted. Well, look, thank you very much for joining me today and having a bit of a reminisce. We'll have to do it again soon. And next
Yes,
time, I'm going to dig out the props box and we can ooh and
yes,
ah
we'll
together
do
over
a
it.
fast mail Photep deep dive.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, thank you very much, Ezra. Take
Yeah.
care and see you soon.
All
Bye
right.
bye.